Hey, welcome to today's tech tip. It's going to be a little bit different today. We're going to be explaining the TrueAGI tokenization of the equity of DPC members. And to do that, I got a couple of graphs that I'm going to show you guys. So currently TrueAGI, based on some partnerships they're making and some outside money they're seeking, have a valuation of $2.5 billion, which is pretty cool. Of that, obviously, DPC members own about 10% of that. So you take that 10% pie out of here, and that's the slice the DPC members currently own of that equity. And so the way that we're going to do this is equity is basically illiquid. It's only cash outable if somebody buys that equity from you at a later time, or you're able to sell that equity on the secondary market, which is essentially what some of the DPC members are doing. And in order to do that in a Web3 world, we're going through something we call tokenization here. So tokenization is going to occur through us creating a contract that will tokenize the entire DPC slice. And to add value to those that are getting the tokens now and offering up the liquidity and helping spread the liquidity around, we're actually cutting that valuation in half. And so the current DPC slice, even though it's worth about 250 million on paper through equity, it's going to be cut in half to 125 million. So we're going to use this number going forward to explain the rest of the numbers. So instantly on paper, essentially anybody that buys it, this valuation will have a hypothetical 2x in their portfolio. So once you do that, we take that 125 million, you take that and you start to break that into tokens. And we've chose $10 tokens because it's easy, nice round number. That gives you 12,500,000 tokens, each valued at $10. And once you get that, then that gets you your tokenization simply broke down into a contract on the smart chain. Those tokens are then sellable, distributable, whatever you want to do with those tokens. Now, since each token is worth $10, once you have that token, you will hold it in your wallet. You can also go relist it on Marketplace for whatever value you want because it is then your token. And then I'll talk about how if the value goes up and down based on the valuation of TrueAGI here in a second. But let's actually go through that right now. So right now, based on the $1.25 billion valuation, each token of the 10% is worth $10. Now, if the valuation, well, which it is now $2.5 billion, each token on paper is essentially worth $20, but a token, as you all know, is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for that token. So even though it's worth $20 right now, I think that a lot of the DPC members are going to cut their valuation in half and sell it for $10. So essentially it's going to be worth $10 and tradable at that amount. But as the value goes up, we can see some different scenarios break out. And we can also see some different scenarios if the value goes down. For example, if the value in TrueAGI, for whatever reason, were to drop to $500 million on paper, your tokens would be worth about $4 a token. So everything is based on the valuation. And I'll tell you how that will actually turn into US dollars here in a second as well. But at the inverse is true as well. If the value were to go to $20 billion, each of the tokens would be worth about $160. And a $20 billion valuation for TrueAGI is something that I think, anyway, we won't get into that, but very possible. So anyway, let's take the valuation at $10 billion and run through that scenario, how that would play out, because each token would then essentially be worth $80. But then how do you get that $80 out? One, I guess it's a free market. So knowing that TrueAGI is valued at $80, theoretically, you could go on to Nodemarket at any time and sell those tokens for in and around that value, because there's going to be buyers that are going to speculate that TrueAGI will be valued at more in the future, obviously. Or if there's no buyers, then you can either just hold on to those or sell those for a lower cost to get liquidity out of your tokens. You can sell those at a discount or whatever. It's just like any other company in the publicly traded world. Basically, we're valuing a company at X amount, and we have stock that or anything else representing small chunks of that equity at that amount. So if TrueAGI, for example, were to have that $10 billion valuation, what would that look like? And how would that play out if they had a total buyout offer? Say somebody came to them, a bigger company, and said, we want to buy your entire company for $10 billion. What would need to happen was all the equity holders would need to be paid out. And since the DPC essentially on through contracts own the 10% of the equity. $1 billion of that equity would have to funnel out through the DPC. Now, the members of the DPC that didn't tokenize any of their parts would just get the straight cash, but the remainder, any of the tokenized DPC equity, would then go into the token smart contract. At that point, all of that money, let's just assume that it's, I don't know, half of that or whatever it is, 500 million of that would go into the smart contract, and all of these tokens over here would be redeemable on Nodemarket for that cash at that time. So any of that money would be funneled out. So from an outside perspective of a company, they still see this whole chunk. They don't see any of this tokenization or anything. This is basically a secondary market that's going to be created for anybody that wants to have liquidity in any of those tokens. Obviously, the DPC members that do not want to do that do not need to do that. This is totally secondary, and they can release or trade the equity in whatever way they want. Similar to if they decided to take their whole equity chunk and sell that to their grandma at an increased rate, whatever they tell their grandma it is going to be, and they could do that at any given time as well. And that would not affect the whole. But at the end of the day, as soon as this valuation is reached and a cash purchase or equity buyout occurs, even if it's only a half equity buyout and this whole share gets bought out, there's going to be a transaction that occurs where all of that will go into one of two pools, one pool being the token contract that will be redeemable on Nodemarket at that point in time for the full value of whatever this equity had reached or whatever that buyout ended up getting to. So hopefully that kind of clears things up. If there's any questions, we will address those and kind of answer those. But the key to all this is just tokenized equity that is tradable on the secondary market at any given time to help liquefy the market for this and allow more people to participate in the future valuation of TrueAGI, which I think is pretty cool. And these tokens will always be tradable on Nodemarket. They will also be redeemable at a given point in time if this ever cashes out for that exact dollar amount. So if you think of one day it's going to be cashed out at $20 billion valuation, meaning $160 a token, on that day, you can go list your tokens on Nodemarket and redeem each token for $160, which is pretty cool. So that's how that's going to work out. Also, I want to emphasize this does not affect this structure at all. This is still one solid unit, one solid pie chunk. When somebody comes to look at the equity in TrueAGI and says, you know what, we want to do a buyout of that 10% chunk, we'll just gotta cash that out and we'll take over that equity, that same thing results. All DPC members who did not tokenize will just get the cash percentage that they originally had, same equity as they own of this 10%. And the people who tokenized will have to put that into the smart contract to be redeemed on Nodemarket for these tokenized token holders that have purchased tokens prior. So that's super simple. Hopefully I explained that correctly for you guys to understand. If there's any questions or if I missed anything, by all means, let me know. And we will see you in the next